we can design sequential logic cells using transmission gate logic. Using transmission gate logic. As mentioned in our previous lecture, the transmission gate consists of two transistors that are connected in parallel. One transistor is NMOS and another transistor is PMOS. PMOS will provide a strong one and NMOS will provide a strong zero. And this transmission gate is typically controlled by an enable signal. Okay, one enable signal is high and another is low. Okay, so if you look at this block diagram, can you see the block diagram of the latch? So now this is the block diagram of a latch, which has a D input, Q output, and with an enable signal. So how we can implement this latch using transmission gate logic? So we need a feedback path. We need a feedback path. And why we need a feedback? Because what is the property of a latch? Latch is used to store some value. Okay, so there are two modes of the latch. Q will track D when enable is 1, and Q will retain its previous value when enable is 0. So now this is the high level property of a latch. Now we will see that how we can implement this property using transmission gate logic. Now if you look, there are two paths. There are two paths. If you see that there are two paths to realize or implement this latch, this is path 1, P1. Okay, and another path is P2. If you look at this, P1 is for the track mode or for the retain mode? For the track mode. So it means that Q will track D when enable is equal to 1, and Q will retain its previous value when enable is equal to 0. Now if you look at how we can provide this functionality. So if you look at the track and the retain mode, so P1 is a track mode or retain mode? P1 is a track mode, and P2 is retain mode. Okay, so now in P1, what should be the value of enable? 1. Enable will be 1. And in the retain mode, what will be the value of enable? Enable will be 0. Now if you look at this transmission gate, so now we have used two transmission gates. One is TG1, that is on the path 1, P1, and another transmission gate TG2, that is in this path. So this transmission gate, the first transmission gate that lies in the path P1 is referred to as TG1, and the second transmission gate is referred to as TG2. Now if you look at TG1, so now if you look at, there are two transistors. One is the NMOS, that is on the bottom, and another is PMOS, that is on the top. So if you look at the bottom, on the bottom we have enable, and on the top we have enable bar. So for TG1, we provide enable on NMOS and enable bar at PMOS. Now if you look at the second transmission gate, now we have inverted value. So in the second transmission gate, enable bar is provided on NMOS and enable is provided on PMOS. So in this case, when enable is equal to 1, TG1 will be on. And now how many inverters are there? 2 inverters. So 2 inverters, so what will do? So what will be the value of Q? So now there are 2 inverters and now we have path P1. If you look at this path P1, this is our path P1. So what will the Q? So now in this case here we will have D bar, and on Q what will be the value? D, because there are 2 inverters. So now it's the track mode. TG1 is on and TG2 is off. Now, what about the second mode when enable is equal to 0? When enable is equal to 0, TG1 is off. It means that the input is now disconnected from the output, and whatever the value that was previously stored will now be retained. So now we have a path P2. We call this as a storage loop, and in the previous example it was in the path P2. So now this way we can implement a latch. And now we are using two inverters. When you are using two inverters, it will provide us a buffer mechanism. Okay, because if you remember in previous lectures, the basic problem with the transmission gate was the charge sharing problem. And how we could avoid that problem? By using buffer. So if you look at this schematic, how many transistors are used for the implementation? No. So one inverter, two inverters, three inverters. So there are how many inverters? Three inverters. So how many? Three for these inverters. Two for transmission gate TG1, two for transmission gate 2, TG2. And now one inverter is also used for enable, because now we have enable and enable bar. How we can? So we need another inverter. So we need one inverter. Whose input is enable. Whose output is enable bar. If you look at here, enable bar is provided here, and enable bar is provided here. What about enable? On the downside, enable. Okay. So in this case, in the first case, enable bar is provided on PMOS of PG1, and in the second case on the NMOS of PG2. And vice versa, enable is provided on NMOS of PG1, and enable is provided on PMOS of PG2. And it's a mutually exclusive case. When PG1 will be on, PG2 will be off. And when PG2 will be on, PG1 will be on. And both transistors will be on simultaneously, because one will provide a strong 1 and another will provide a strong 0. So this way we can implement a latch using transmission gate logic. Now we will see that how we can implement a flip-flop. So now this is a schematic of a flip-flop. So if you look at this flip-flop, it has D input, clock. So the clock is on the rising edge or the falling edge? Falling edge, because there is a bubble there. So the bubble there. And now we have two outputs, Q and Q bar. So we have two outputs, Q and Q bar. Now if you want to design some flip-flop, and we already studied in digital logic design course that the flip-flop can be realized by using two latches. One is in the master mode and another one is the slave mode. So there are two latches. So two latches are required. One master mode and another in the slave mode. So yeah, if you look down, here, this one. So we have two. We are using two latches. What I'm doing here? We are using three latches. This is a block diagram of a latch. Okay, now there are two types of clocks. One is clock P and another is clock N. Clock P. What is? So now if you look at here, so here is clock. This is clock N, and this one is clock P. So when clock P is high, what will the level of clock N? Low. When clock P is 1, clock N will be 0. When clock P is 0, N will be 1. Okay, now there are two modes. Now if you look at just the block diagram, we are not looking at the transmission gate implementation. What we are looking at the very high level implementation of. So we can realize a flip-flop. So we can realize a flip-flop using this. So actually, how we can do this? We can have the input, and now we have clock. Actually, what is this? This is actually a latch. This is a master latch, ML. ML stands for master latch. The output of this latch is X. The output of this latch is X. Now we are connecting another latch. We call this as slave latch. Okay, now if you look at this clock P, this clock P will go on the enable signal of the latch. Clock P will go on the, because it's a latch, so actually latch has two inputs and one output. What is the input? D and enable. For a latch, if you remember the latch, remember the latch above, and we studied now the latch here. Actually, latch has an enable signal. It means this clock P will go on the enable input of the latch. Actually, what is this X? This X will go on the Q output of the latch. If you look at here, what is the latch? So actually, let's Q, and this Q is directly connected to X. Now we have is directly connected to X. Now, if you look at here, now we have latch. Actually, it is. If you look at the slave latch, what is this? D. The output is Q and enable. And what will go on enable now? Not clock P, because clock and what will be the output of this? It is actually, if you look at the flip-flop, so in the flip-flop implementation, we are using two latches. One latch is used in the master mode, and other latch is used in the slave mode. Now if you look at the implementation, internal implementation of the latch. So if you look at this master latch, now you are looking at this master latch. So this master latch is implemented here. We're using the same, we have D now. D. So if you look at this path, this P1, this will be a track mode or retain mode? Track mode. And what about this one? Retain mode. Similarly, for this latch, it will be track mode or retain mode? Track mode. And this one in a retain mode. Okay, now there are two different things. Okay, now when clock P is high, the master will be loaded by D, and the second path will be disconnected. If you look at here, so now we are using clock P here. When clock P is here, next clock we are using clock N here. It's the same implementation of latch. Now we have reversed. Here's the location. So now if you look at here, it's clock P. Now here it is clock N. And now we have reversed the direction of P and N. Okay. So now when it means that now there are two possibilities. When clock is 1, when clock is equal to 1, what will the clock P? Clock P will be 1. What will the clock N? N will be 0. Clock N will be 0. So it means, so this will be the path. So in this case, in this scenario, master will be in the track mode and the slave will be in the retain mode. So the master, so if you look at here, the master is in track mode and the slave is in retain mode, and clock P is 1. It means now we are loading the master. We are loading now the master. The master is being loaded now. Now, in the alternate scenario, when clock is equal to 0, clock is equal to 0. What will be the value of clock P? 0. Clock P will be 0. Clock N will be 1. So in this case, master will be in retain mode, and the slave will be in track mode. So now if you look at here, now we look at the clock. If you look at the clock here, now here's the clock. This one is your clock. So in this case, master is being loaded during this time interval when clock P is high. This one is clock P is in high. And now during this load, slave will be loaded. So when we are loading slave, then X value does not change, and its value will be retained. So the value of D is assigned to Q only on the next edge of the clock. Next edge of the clock. The clock will make a transition from a logical 1 to a logical 0. So now in this case, when there is a negative transition, from clock high to clock low, the value that was tracked previously will be now assigned to Q. So now in this way, we have now implemented a negative edge trigger flip-flop using two latches. Okay, using two latches. One is master latch and another is slave latch. The master latch is enabled by clock P. The slave latch is enabled by clock N. When one latch is in track mode, the other latch will be in retain mode. And vice versa. So this way we can implement a flip-flop. We can implement a flip-flop using transmission gate. Definitely we need to change the signal. We need to change the signal. And basically you need to verify. You can draw this schematic at home and then you try this and then it will work on that. Yes. Yes. So now we can do in this case the master latch should be now enabled by clock N and slave.
तो उसकी जो ट्रांसमिशन गेट वाली स्कीमेटिक है उसमें तो वो एन और पी दोनों यूज हो रहे हैं, तो हमने तो उसकी जो लैच है उसको एक ही दी हुई है, वो कैसे होगा? चलो हमने ऊपर जब
actually this X, what is X? X was assigned, actually X was assigned the value of D when master latch was in track mode, and that value is assigned on the next edge of the clock. Okay, so actually what you are doing when master is in track mode, X is assigned the value of D, and when there is a negative transition, that value will be assigned to Q. Okay, so now this is the working principle of a flip-flop. This is a little bit tricky, but you have to think how things are working. Okay, now we will see that how we can implement an IO cell. How we can implement an IO cell using CMOS. Now if you look at here, we are using one NAND gate and one NOR gate. Which logic is this? NAND logic and NOR logic. We are using some inverter. So how many gates are there? 4 gates are there. 4 gates are there. So the first gate, if you look at here, is G1. G2, there are 2 inverters, G1 and G2. And what about G3 is a NOR gate and G4 is an NAND gate. So how many transistors will be used to realize G4? 4 transistors. 2 transistors in PMOS network and 2 transistors in the. And similarly, how many transistors will be used for NOR? 4. Actually, the combination of parallel and series will be different in NAND and NOR, and we studied this in before. Okay, so I'm not going to draw the transistor schematic. You can draw the transistor schematic. But now we are studying this IO cell. We are studying this IO cell in 3 modes. This IO cell can be used as an input. This IO cell can be used as an output, and it can be used as a bidirectional. How? There are 3 modes. First mode is mode 1. What is mode 1? What is mode 1? When the IO pad is used as an input. Now we have a signal. Now if you look at this IO pad, now we are using a chip pin. What is chip pin? Where is chip pin? The chip pin is highlighted in this yellow. This is an IO pad. If you want to use it as an input pin, so actually the input will be provided from the IO port, the IO pad to the core logic. And what is this buffer used for? This inverter. Inverter is used as a buffer. So the input that will be provided, it will be, let's assume this value is K. Which value will be provided to the core? It will A bar. But if we want to use this as an input pin, we must make sure that both of these transistors N1 and N2 should be off. Because we are using it as input. Because if the chip wants to drive some output and you are taking some value from the outside of the chip, actually there will be contention. To avoid this, so whenever this chip pin we want to use it as an input pin, so we will make sure this transistor is off and this transistor is off. When both of these transistors will be off, so the output, what is your output? D out. So your output, what is your output? Actually, this is your output here, D out. D out will be disconnected from K. D out will be disconnected from K. And what we are going to do, we are taking the value from outside the chip. We are taking the value from outside the chip. So in this case, what will be the value of OE? So OE in this case, output enable will be 0. When output enable will be 0, when output value will be 0, so 0. So which gate are we using? NAND logic. When any input to the AND gate is 0, the output will be 0. When any input to the AND gate is 0, the output will be 0. When any input to the NAND gate is 0, the output will be 1. So what will be the value of 1? X1. X1 will be 1. When O is equal to 0, what will be the value of X1? 1. Okay, when O is equal to 0, so in this case, this is now we are going, its second input is OE bar. OE bar. Now it's an input to the NOR gate. When any input to the NOR gate is 1, the output will be 0. When any input to the NOR gate is 1, then what will be the value of X2 here? 0. Okay, now X1 is 1. When O is equal to 0, when O is equal to 0, the second input, that is D out, will be ignored. The second input, that is D out, will be ignored. Because if one input of the NAND gate is 0, the output will be 1 independent of the second. Similarly, the input of the NOR gate will be 0 if any input is 1 independent of the second input. Now in this case, if you look at here, when OE is 0, so here is 0, and this D out will not pass to the output, and X1 will be 1, and in this scenario, X2 will be 0. When X2 will be 0, okay, now if you look at PMOS, PMOS is enabled by 0 or 1? 0, but it's instead it's 1. So PMOS will be off or on? Off. So in this particular scenario, this M1 will be off and M2 will be off. Why M2 will be off? Because the input is 0. This is both M1 and M2 are off, and in this case, the output K is now isolated from the output. Output P out is now isolated from the chip pin, that is K. So now this is the scenario here in mode 1. Now this is the scenario and this is the explanation. You can go through.
Input mode है तो ये फिर input दे कहाँ से रहे हैं?
OE. So input is from the chip out, from the chip pin. Some other chip is driving. Maybe the input is a switch.
तो ये जो D है यहाँ
Maybe it is an inverter. It will come from K and it will go to the chip through D in. Okay. Now what is the second mode? When we want to use this as an output pin, when we want to use it as an output pin, what we need to do?
enable को enable 1.
Enable will be 1. Enable will be 1. Okay, now I'm redrawing all this this figure. I'm redrawing this figure in a separate slide. Okay, now if you look at here, so we had VDD here. VDD, We have now, this is transistor M1. This one is transistor M2. It's now VDD. VDD. M2 is now 0. Now this is your chip pad, and it's in. Now we are using one gate. What is this gate? NAND gate. The first input is D out. NAND gate, and the other input is OE. OE. And now we are using a NOR gate. First input is out, and the other input is OE bar. Okay, now when we want to use it as an output mode, what will be the value of OE? OE is equal to 1. In this case, OE will be 1. Okay, when OE is 1, so let's assume OE is now 1 here. What will be the value of OE bar? 0. Now OE is 1. What will be now? This will now behave as an inverter. So the input here will be now out bar. Now it's in AND gate. One input is 1. Okay. So now OE is 0. This output will also be the out bar, because it is now input to the OR gate or NOR gate. So, okay, so if the first input is 0 to the OR gate, for the OR gate the output will be D out. But now this is inverter on the output side, so it will be D out bar. Now there are two possibilities. So actually the output now depends on D out bar. The output now depends on D out bar. So now there are two possibilities. When D out bar is 0 or D out bar is 1. So now we see for this possibility. The first possibility, I am highlighting this in green. Let's assume that D out bar is 0. Let's assume that D out is 1. What will be the value of D out bar? 0. D out bar will be 0. It means it will also be D out is 1. D out is 1. D out bar will be 0 here, and D out bar will be 0 here. Which transistor will be on? M1 will be on. So M1 will be on. M1 will be on, and the output will be VDD. The output is VDD. The output is actually, what is output? What is your output? Output is actually K. Now what is K? K is equal to 1. When D out is 1, K is equal to 1. Now we see another scenario. So another scenario, when D out is 0, what will be D out bar? 1. Okay. So now in this case, if you look at here, it's 1, it will be 0, it will be 0, it will be 1, and it will be 1. Which transistor will be on? M2 will be on. When M2 will be on, what will happen? 0. K is equal to 0. So actually, when K is equal to, D out is equal to 1, K will be, when D out will be 1, K will be 1, but when D out is equal to 0, K will be 0. K will be 0. Actually, we can say that K will be equal to D out. K will be equal to D out when output enable is equal to 1. K will be equal to D out when output, when D out is equal to, K will be equal to D out with OE is equal to 1. When output enable is equal to 0, then the output will be disconnected from the input. And now this mode is called as mode 2, and the previous mode was called as mode 1. So if you look at the notes, it's already explained here. Now in this case, mode 2 is now explained here. Now what about mode 3? Mode 3 is very simple. We can also use it is in a bidirectional mode. And that bidirectional mode is determined by which signal? OE. When OE is equal to 0, when OE is equal to 0, it will be used as an input pin. When OE is equal to 1, it will be used as an output mode. And in this way, the input can be decoupled. The input can be decoupled. So there are three modes of an IO cell. The IO cell can be either configured as an input pin, or it can be configured as an output pin, or it can be configured as a bidirectional. In a bidirectional pin. In bidirectional pin, the output will be from the output will be provided from the chip output to the pin in an output port, and in the input port, the data will be provided from the outside chip to the chip internal. Okay, now we will study programming technologies. Programming technology. What is a programming technology? Can anybody say what is programming technology? We studied some programmable devices. What are the programmable devices that we studied? Xilinx device, Xilinx TFB architecture, Altera Max architecture, and Flex architecture, if you remember. So we studied all of these technologies. So we had CFBs, we had CLBs, configurable functional block, configurable logic block, and logic array blocks. But all of these technologies are driven by the type of the cell that we use. So there are two types of programmable technologies. One is OTP at a high level, and another is MTP. OTP stands for one-time programmable. And one-time programmable means when the device is programmed, it cannot be reprogrammed. It means that now the logic is final and fixed. And in MTP, many-time programmable, once it is programmed, you can reprogram it. Okay, so the LUT-based logic, in a LUT-based logic that we studied, it is a many-time programmable or one-time programmable? LUT-based LUT, it was many-time programmable. Let's assume we had a two-input LUT. When I had a two-input LUT, so we can configure this as an AND gate when the values that are stored are 0, 0, 0, 1. And another style, if you store 0, 1, 1, 1, so it will implement an OR gate. What about 0, 0, 1, 1, 1? It will OR gate. Okay, and 0, 1, 1, 0. 1, 1, 0 then? So actually there are many possibilities, and the total number of combinations you can see that how many combinations will be there. So actually in a many-time programmable technology, you can program your chip many times. And in a LUT-based logic, how we were achieving that, we need to reload the new values to the LUTs. And when we populate the LUTs with the new values, it can be reprogrammed. It can be reprogrammed. So now in this type of programming technology, there are three technologies. One is anti-fuse technology, second is static RAM technology, and another is EPROM and EEPROM technology. So first we will study an anti-fuse technology. Anti-fuse technology. If you look at anti-fuse and fuse, what is the difference between fuse? So in fuse, let's assume there is an electrical connection, and when the wire is blown up, for a fuse technology, let's say we are using a fuse, and there is a wire between two connections. Okay, we want to connect A and B with a fuse. When the fuse is blown up, what will happen? It is disconnected. But anti-fuse is opposite of the fuse. So actually, when you provide some large current, so actually the connection is made, and that connection is permanent. You cannot break that connection. So okay, in a fuse, when high current passes and the fuse is blown, actually it will be disconnected, and it cannot be reconnected until the same wire is there. But in anti-fuse technology, when you made a connection, you drive high current. When you drive high current through the anti-fuse, the connection will be made permanent. And when it's made permanent, it cannot be reverted back. Okay, when the connection is made, let's say we have some connection, we want the connection between A and B. And when the connection is met, so it will provide a low resistance or high resistance? Low resistance. So it will provide a low resistance. So in an anti-fuse technology, so if you look at the anti-fuse technology, so there are two types of mechanism. There are two types of mechanism to realize this anti-fuse. One is the poly-diffusion anti-fuse and another is metal-metal anti-fuse. Poly-diffusion anti-fuse. If you look at the poly-diffusion anti-fuse, the high current density. So the high current density causes a large power dissipation in a small area, which melts a thin insulator between polysilicon and diffusion electrode to form a thin permanent resistive silicon link. So if you look at here, if you look at this, actually if you look at here, it is actually a dielectric. It is actually a dielectric, and this dielectric exists between N plus diffusion electrode. This is connection 1. Let's assume this is connection A. And it exists between polysilicon layer. Let's assume this is connection B. Actually, what's there? Now, actually, there is a connection A, and between connection A and B, there is a dielectric. When the dielectric is there, so dielectric, this, what is this green? If you look at this green is actually the dielectric here. This dielectric that is shown in green exists between N plus diffusion electrode, that is A, and polysilicon, that is B. So now we want to make a connection between A and B. And between this A and B, a dielectric is existing. When a dielectric is existing, so this connection will be made or off. The connection will be off. It means that A and B are disconnected normally. But if we want to make a connection between A and B, what we need to do? We provide a very high current. When we provide a very high current, it will make a link between A and B. When a link and it melts, when it melts, and it's actually a very thin layer. When it melts, so the A and B, because of this high current density, A and B are then connected. When A and B are connected, so it means that a connection will be made between N plus diffusion electrode and polysilicon. So actually, this technology is called as polydiffusion antifuse. Another type of is metal-metal antifuse. And in the metal-metal antifuse, actually there is an antifuse. So actually, let's assume this is in connection A. This is, let's assume, connection A and connection B. What is connection A? Connection A is a polysilicon and connection B is an N plus. And between these two layers, there is a metal layer. And in between these two layers, there is an antifuse. It is called as metal antifuse. And similarly, when we provide a very high current, the connection is met and the connection is met. For a high current, the connection is met. So we provide a low resistance or high resistance? So actually, this is the working principle. It's the working principle of a